Okay, so today we're gonna do a little sidetrack from our series in the Book of James, and we're gonna deal with the matter of what is the church, because we have so many things out there calling themselves the church and calling itself the church, and so many people don't even know what it is. Many people associate the church with what? A building. That's what most people, 90% of the time, is going to associate the church with a building. Or my next one is what? Some kind of organization. Okay? So, but the church is a living organism, not an organization. What is an organism?
A living thing.
Living thing. So the church is a building living?
No.
I didn't hear a build. I don't remember ever going up on the side of a building and hearing it breathe. I don't ever remember doing that. You know, and don't get all extreme with the haunted house foolishness, because that's another message to some other nonsense. But I haven't heard buildings breathe. So the church is not a building. Oh, are you going to church? Oh, I went to church today. Okay, you just went in some building and did what? Like the people with the Catholic Church and all these churches that are so supposed to be holy. If you walk in this building, oh, everything around you is all holy. What? The building? And that's where everybody gets this mindset of what the church is. And so we're going to spend some time trying to find out, what does the scripture say the church is? Defined in the scripture, not defined by some man's opinion, not defined by my opinion, not defined by somebody's imagination. What is the church? And you notice I said the church. See, we're going to find out what that is, because everybody, like I said, you talked about the building. What church do you go to? First thing, when you mention something of a religious nature, what's the first question everybody asks you? What church do you go to? I was asked that this week a number of times. And so it's like, and they get this pit, and somebody tell me, let's just start naming it. What's the picture that comes to their mind when people think about church?
A building.
A building?
With
seats.
Choir?
Stained glass windows.
Stained glass windows?
An altar boy.
Ushers?
Yep.
People passing out certain things and
Passing out the collection plate.
collection plates. They look at they put all these things together in their mind and say, that's what the church is. And now it changed up in many ways now, because now everybody's adding everything in it now. So now I thought it was this, and now I'm going to add this in it and say, this is the church. Here it is. This is what I say the church is to me. That's where everybody's going off of right now. But it's not according to what the church is to you or I.
Like this church out in Lancaster, where I used to go on Monday nights with Justin, they have their own Starbucks inside the church.
Yeah, they're starting to do all that stuff now. They're bringing everything in it.
And a video arcade.
Yeah, they said church is what we want to make it today. Video, skateboard, rings, all kind of stuff is a part of the church. Donut shops. It's a place.
They cater to the homosexuals at the business.
It's a lot of things going on that people are calling church. So what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to define it, what it means in the scripture. And that's all that matters. What does God say it is? Because where did it come from? Him. So we want to find out what he say it is and where it came from, and we're going to spend some, like I said, maybe a couple weeks on this, but we're going to spend some time really trying to deal with this and just trying to dig in and see what the scriptures are saying. And then when we go to scriptures, we're going to see within the context, what it is. Let's first define what is the church. Let's first look at that. Okay. And we're going to start that out by, where am I at? We're going to start that out by looking at the word church. We know 1 Timothy 3 is the chapter talking about what? 1 Timothy 3, when we went through the Timothy series, 1 Timothy 3 was the chapter that was basically talking about the qualifications for the pastor and the bishop, right?
Right.
Okay, so, and going right into the context of that Paul goes right into telling Timothy all the qualifications. A man must be this, must be that, et cetera, going through everything, all the qualifications. And then he comes down and says, this is a part of and adds this into the church. Watch this. If we go down to 1 Timothy 3, 14, look at 14. So after Paul tells Timothy about the qualifications and gives him what they all should be, he ends up saying this here in verse 14. These things write I unto thee, hoping to come unto thee shortly. But if I tarry long, that thou mayest know how thou oughtest behave thyself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth. Now, we're going to look at this verse because I know there are questions already popping in people's mind. We're going to break this up, but this is where I want to get. First, let's define the word church before we go any further. I just want to read that, but that's going to be a verse I'm going to be going off of, and then other ones after that. Okay, the word church is the Greek word, and I want to explain something first. First of all, I've said this probably hundreds of times. I know the people here know it, but this is just for YouTube land. The Bible is not in English. You cannot determine what you think a church is because you have the English language. The Bible is written in what? Hebrew, Greek, a little bit of Aramaic. The Bible is not in English. The Bible is not American. So we got this American thinking. We have to know, that's why you have to go back to the original language and find out what the word means, and find out what the word was, and find out what it means. And then you have to find out the parts of speech, the tense of the word. All these things you have to go back and study and find out what something means. So this word church, the Greek word is ekklesia. Okay? Now, it comes from two words. Okay? It comes from the word, it's the word ek, meaning out or from out or out from. And it also comes from kaleo. We should know what kaleo means in the Greek. What is kaleo? Come on, folks. What's kaleo? It's to call. It's a call. It's a call of God. Okay? So it comes from those two words, putting that together, call out. Called out from. You see that? Okay? Now it's a noun. It's part of speech. It's a noun. Okay. Now, let me go back up. We're going to get another definition of this. Because depending on the context is where we're going to get our definition from. Okay, but we're going to find out, we're going to dig in with the Greek word and deal with more of what that's saying. Okay? It means to be called out. We know kaleo means what? A call, a summons. That's what, have you ever, especially in school, have you ever got summoned out of the classroom? Did you know you were being summoned?
No.
Did you go and say, oh, teacher, today in 10 minutes, I'm going to be summoned out the class. I'm going to be going to the office. No, you didn't say that. Someone summons you. That's what this call means. That's what called out means, to be summoned. So let's get that straight too. Is everybody summoned? See, that's another thing we got to get right so we can figure this, so we can know what this whole church thing is about. Everyone's not a part of the church. Just because you're going to some building down the street, that makes you I'm a part of this church. But now we have to find out, is that
Church.
place you're going, or are the people you're gathered with, are they of the like-mindedness? Are they Christian? Are they Christians?
Are they summoned to be?
And have they been called? That's what's missed. Everybody's, I'm just a part of this church. But really, you're a part of an organization. Like I was saying earlier, Christianity is not an organization. It's not, okay, I'm a part of this group, this group, this group, this group. Those are organizations. Christianity is an organism. It's living. So that would make it what? The people. We're going to deal with that too. Okay? Because it's the called out ones. Individuals called out. That's what the word ecclesia means. Yeah, called out ones. Certain, yeah, that was one of the words that was used. Certain ones. That's what it was used. Okay? It's also used as an assembly. Assembling together. That's what ecclesia means, to assemble together. Is that a building?
No.
No. You got a whole bunch of buildings inside of another building gathering together? No. So you got to really think. You have to go with what it really is. But people assemble, don't they? And just because people are assembling in a building, does that make them the church? No. Because remember, the church are the called out ones. You have to have been called. You have to have been summoned. Called by God. If you miss that, you're going to miss everything. And that's the point I'm going to make as we go through other scriptures and what it does it mean to be a part of the church. Okay? So let's start here. The understanding of ecclesia as a secular term of classical Greek is in part linked to its etymology. It is from ek, which is from or out, and kaleo, which is called. That's what I just said. Okay? And it's a verb, because remember, every word has a verb. So words have a verb form and a noun form. There's a verb form of this word. Ekleo is what it's called. The verb form is called ekleo. And what is a verb? Mm-hmm. So if the verb form is ekleo, meaning to call out or to summons, who is that a work of? God. That's a work of God. That's an action on God. That's a verb. That's an action on God. Okay? The noun form results in the assembling. The verb results in the action of God doing the calling. You see that? Mm-hmm. The noun form is the assembling, because a noun is what? Persons, place, or thing. Nouns is the assembling together. That's the noun form of ekleo. No, that's the noun form, ecclesia. But the verb form is ekleo, which means to summons, to call out. That's an action. Okay? All right. Now, this goes back over years and years also. Because remember, because I can take you back further and more history about it, but we're just going to go back just a little far and see more of what this word came from. Because there were two words back then that were compared to each other in the Old Testament and the New Testament. The comparison of the two words in particular, however, one was ecclesia and one was synagogue. What does synagogue sound like? See if we got our thinking caps on. So, who said it? Who said it? Synagogue. Yeah. You see that? That's where the two words came and compared Old Testament and New Testament. Okay? Used in a very restrictive sense. Synagogue was used in a broad way. and was used especially for gatherings of various a lot of pagans gathered together in synagogues. Remember that? Come together religiously and gather and come in synagogues. That doesn't mean it was of truth. Doesn't mean it was of the Lord. But pagans gathered together in various at various times in various synagogues. Okay. There was another word in the Hebrew that was translated to ecclesia, and it was the word Qahal, 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 and that was in the Old Testament term, and it was conveyed of an idea of a group of people assembling for a purpose. A group of people assembling for a purpose. That's the Hebrew word. I said Greek word. The Hebrew word was Gahal. That's the Hebrew word. And you can find that Hebrew word in the Old Testament, where you're going to have Esther 8:11, Joshua 22:12, 2 Chronicles 20:26. You're going to find that word being used there as people gathering together. Remember we were talking last night, Ned, we were talking about how Moses, with the people who were going with Moses through the wilderness. Wasn't that a congregation that was going through the wilderness with Moses? And God told Moses to go out and speak to the congregation? That was a gathering of people. Didn't God gather those people together?
Yes, he did.
Sure did. See, this thing can go a long way. There's so much on my mind. There's so much that I can do to deal with this, because I can go all over the place with this. But I'm trying to stay with basic points to kind of give us an idea of what's going on. Okay?
I'll come during the week and talk about that.
I second that.
So it's a lot of stuff with that, because you got to go back to the Old Testament. That's why I said and here's another thing. You cannot have the church without the Old Testament. How are people coming together, gathering, and they don't talk about the Old, and they don't read the Old Testament? You cannot have a church without the Old Testament. You're not going to know what the church is about without the Old Testament, because the Old Testament is a shadow of things to come in the new. Okay? Now, let's go to another point. Let me go down to another point that's made by this writer. Okay. From the inception of the covenant at Sinai, it was said of Israel that they were a kingdom of priests. Remember that? And a holy nation. That's Exodus 19:6. They were a kingdom of priests. It would be in the midst of the people that God's presence would be manifest, and he ordered that the tabernacle be erected in the midst of the camp where his glory might be revealed. Remember all what happened through the Old Testament with Moses and the congregation? That's like I mentioned earlier. You go read through that whole thing, and that's all God choosing. And tell me, in the time when God chose those people, who were they? Jews. Thank you. They were Jews. The word was only given to one flesh at that time, and that was the Jew. And now God said, and then God prophesied and said he was going to pour out his spirit upon all flesh. All flesh is all variety now of flesh. Gentile. That's what that means. It doesn't mean everybody. He'll pour his spirit up on all flesh, every person. No, that means all kinds, all varieties. Okay? Later on, this special presence of the Lord was transferred to the temple. Remember the Lord dwelt in the temple? Yeah. Remember that? In the Psalms, the congregation of Israel expressed joy for the grace which they experienced in the presence of the Lord. At their festivals and celebrations in the temple, they declared, Lord, I love the habitation of thy house and the place where thine honor dwelleth. That's Psalms 26. Okay? As the nation fell into deeper and deeper apostasy, a concept developed of a separation within the congregation. You notice that. If you've read any Old Testament, you should notice, during the course of time, what started to happen? People start to apostatize. You know what apostatize means? That means to go in the air and leave. That means to go astray. All through church history, there's been apostasy. We're living in the days of apostasy right now. That's why people can't take truth. People don't understand what truth is, and people bounce from church to church and gathering to gathering because the people that we're living in days of apostasy, don't nobody want to hear truth. Put plain and simple. And the churches, the so-called, I want to make this emphasis. The so-called churches out there are not teaching it. All right. And then it says, although from the earliest days of the covenant, the rebellious were what? Removed from the midst of the congregation. Numbers 16:33. The rebellious were removed. God was always removing people. Okay? All right. Then the next point.
Where were we at?
I see
lost
the
my spot.
Gentile Christians, Romans 16:4.
Mm-hmm.
The church which meets at the house of someone.
Yeah, we're gonna deal with that. See, we're gonna deal with everybody has this thing in their head that a church is a building. I gotta go to this building, or if I don't have the giant building with the stained glass windows and a huge place to pack a bunch of people in there so I can show off my church, then my ministry is nothing. And that's a problem with pastors out there who are ashamed to be real men of God because they don't have a church building everybody can look up to them for. That's a shame too.
And they know what the truth.
But see, a lot of these people, that's the thing. A lot of these people are ashamed because of I don't want to be looked at as an outcast by telling truth. Oh, you're going to be an outcast telling truth. You just need to get ready for it, or you're in the wrong business. Close up the church and go do something else because you're not called. Those who've been called are going to say what the Lord says. Those who've been called are going to say, okay, you know what? I got to say what God says regardless of who leaves. If you're sitting there preaching to crickets, you're going to do it because you've been faithful. You've been called to the Lord to do it. But today, in today's popular world, you got to have a bunch of people to be relevant. See, that's where we live at. And we kind of back ourselves into a corner and say, okay, am I going to be willing to accept what God has given me here, the few he's given me, or I got to go out and start changing my message so I can get more people? Because see, if I was like that, I could do that. Oh, but that's not, no. I would be unqualified.
Where are we at in the Bible? I lost my spot.
Oh, I'm reading. We're still on that passage in Timothy, but I'm reading some background on the church, and then I'm going on what the ecclesia is and how it where it was in the Old Testament, and just really going forward what this really means.
Oh, okay.
So, but that passage you were in was at 1 Timothy 3, right? 15.
15.
Okay. Having this background in mind, it is very interesting that the Gentile Christian congregation did not use the destination of synagogues for their church, for their gatherings. You notice Gentiles didn't want to go inside of synagogues because they were normally for Jews that were doing their worship and doing their thing in there. Some went, but then you had the Gentile was like, no, we're not going to get caught up in this kind of ritual thing. Okay? The members of these first Christian congregations came in. Okay, where am I at? Let me go back to that. Came in a large degree from Jewish synagogues, which consisted of both Jews and proselytes. Remember what proselytes are, right? Those who were not born Jews, but they went through all the ritualistic things to become a Jew on the outward, not one inward. They became a Jew, and they left everything behind to become that Jew. And what were the things they had to do? They had to go to those feasts. You had to be washed in water. There were certain things that certain groups did, but in order to become a proselyte, what did you have to do? Remember the three things? Had to be dipped and washed in water. What was that? Well, that's all the time we have for today's program. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Real Straight Truth podcast. We hope that something was said to bring you spiritual enlightenment. Please join us next time for another message of Real Straight Truth. If you would like to contact us, feel free to call us at 661-733-2943. That's 661-733-2943. Or you can email us at realstraighttruth@gmail.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content where you can donate to the ministry or just listen to more messages. Until next time, Lord willing, join us for our next podcast with your host, Pastor T.